Wow, today we have something totally different. We're going to be interviewing Mark Olly. He is famous in the UK and now also in the USA. Now, Mark is an archaeologist, among many other things. Quite incredible person. The name of his book today, I've got to let him say it because it's so long. But if you want to know anything about King Arthur, like me, I just thought he was like this romantic stud, da, 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 and then Merlin and this and that. He actually goes all the way back into history and explains everything, even the Holy Grail. So we're going to go in and talk to Mark Olly. He's absolutely fantastic, bestseller, TV personality. So here we go. Hi, Mark. Oh, it's so wonderful to have you on our show. And what is the name? Okay, because I had a little problem with that. Of the book, your new book that's coming, that's out now, a new release.
Well, unusually for me, I'm going to start with an advert, okay, because I actually have the book here. It is creeping in. Let's hope you can see that. It's called The Polychronicon of Merlin, Joseph, and Arthur. And there they are. There is, in fact, Merlin, Joseph, and Arthur on the cover. So, unusually, the release date was going to be the 1st of Feb. But my publisher, Philip Mantle at Flying Disc Press, managed to get this onto Amazon completed as long ago as the end of October. So if you want to order it on, that was the hardback. If you want the hardback or the paperback, hard copy version of the book, it's available now. You can go straight onto Amazon. You can order it pre-release date. And quite a lot of people managed to get it for Christmas. So the audio version's coming later. That's going to arrive. I mean, it's a long book to read. I mean, I don't know if you noticed that, but it's a bit of a thick one. But there you go. Worth every single page. I can assure you, it's a cracking read. Not difficult to read at all. And it's out now. So go onto Amazon, look up me, type in Mark Olly, and you should get the Polychronicon of Merlin, Joseph, and Arthur. And it's got really distinctive cover. You just can't miss it. I think it's going to end up being about 22 English pounds, 23 English pounds, something like that. And it's nearly 500 pages long, so it's well worth it. There you go.
Well, I mean, I know you're an archaeologist and you're going to get into pretty heavy information here. And I just want to say that, since you're a movie star now, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, I could give that a plug as well. Some point this year, I'm on Ancient Aliens.
Yeah.
So I think I've done 4. I'm on 4 of the different programs out of the 15 in the series. So keep your eyes out. You'll see me slowly, gradually invading the United States via Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, besides the UK, okay.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm over here as well. So
yeah. So I mean, you're doing really well. I hate you.
Hey, listen, I was asked, so what can I say? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's thanks to you guys. It's thanks to you guys doing radio shows and stuff like that. That somebody in the production team obviously saw me and thought that guy's bonkers. We've got to have him. We must have him on the show.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, a week later, but just keep giving some plugs for me.
Always. Hey, listen, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for all you guys.
You're just in, and besides that, I mean, you're a wonderful person. So, it's always just such a pleasure having you on. So go ahead and start telling us about the book.
Well, basically, the approach to the book was that I felt that King Arthur was way over mythologized. He was just turned into some people were saying he was a god, and some people were saying that he was this guy or that guy or the other guy. And I actually produced a film, because I do that. I do films and direct films and stuff. When I was first starting out back in 1977, I did research and produced it was on proper film about Arthur, and I sort of played with the idea back then. And I realised that actually, apart from all the nonsense, most of which is medieval, apart from all that rubbish, there was actually a lot of factual information in there. So over the years, what,
Excuse me.
40 odd years now, 45 years, I think it's saying, to get it into print. Over the years, I've started to link a lot of the archaeology and history that I have with stories and pieces of information to do with Arthur. So I thought, okay, that really difficult word, Polychronicon. There was a guy up here in the UK, in Chester, that lived in the 14th century, and he wrote a history in chronological order. So he wrote it basically in date order, which is exactly what I've done with this book. So it's the first Polychronicon to appear anywhere in about 700 years, where it looks at the stories of the Dark Ages and King Arthur. And before that, of course, Joseph of Arimathea and the Holy Grail. And then before that, it looks at Merlin and the end of the Druid Age, which at that point was still known by us as the Iron Age. You know, as you tip into from BC into AD, you know, or BCE to whatever it is, ACDC, you know, as you kind of tip over into the age we live in now. It just all carries on. It's a flow. So the book itself does the same thing. It's a flow. By the time you finish the first section, you think, oh, hang on a minute, now I know what Merlin's all about. I understand Merlin, I understand the background to Merlin, because it focuses only on what we know about the Druids. Then the second bit, the Joseph bit, you sort of look at that and you think, hang on a minute, this guy's having a hard time. You know, Christians are being persecuted by the Romans, he escapes, he goes as far as he possibly can to get away from the Romans and finishes up here in Britain. And that's where you get the Joseph legends here coming from. So it looks at all the background information to that, what the Holy Grail is, who came with him and how he arrived here. Then the next section, then you're looking basically at Arthur himself and Arthur's lifespan. Now, there's a lot of material there, especially in Welsh sources, which is difficult to read or just gets overlooked. So basically, I just went for everything that was old. If there was a first version of anything, that's what I went for. So the vast majority of that, as I say, it's Welsh. It's got Arthur being born in 483. He dies in 539. That's his lifespan from the Welsh records, and it covers the whole of his lifetime. And then all the characters and the knights that interact with him.
Yeah, well, the only thing, Mark, that I know about King Arthur is that, you know, from the stupid TV shows, okay, because we've talked about that's not real, okay, a lot of it is not real, that he was seriously romantic, good looking, and Merlin was like this, you know, amazing, you know, saucer. So that's all I know. So
okay, Merlin was, to all intents and purposes, magical, because he based a lot of what he knew on the Greek and Roman wisdom of the day. So couple that with what we know of the Druids and their ability to look at planets, times and seasons, medicines, etc., etc. He was obviously able to do things that nobody else would do, but he was also very fiercely, you know, old British. He was the last of the old Britons. So he really wanted to make sure that the UK and everything was okay. So he wanted to back a winner. So he brings all that in and he backs Arthur. Arthur, like you say, it starts off young, you know, romantic, warrior. His father dies very young, murdered by the Saxons when he's 14. He gets trained in all the warrior disciplines, if you like. He becomes what we would perhaps regard almost as a barbarian warrior chieftain.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, but very much with Roman influence. So he's building on the back of what's left of Roman Britain. He marries his first wife very young. His first wife's called Gwyre, and they produce Mordred, which is the son that ultimately kills him at the end of the story.
Yeah, he's the bad one.
Yeah, he is. But then he also marries another lass from Ruthin, because he was allowed to do it, because obviously they're polygamous at this point. And then later on, for political and military reasons, he marries Guinevere, who's a Welsh relocated Pict from southern Scotland. She's a Pictish queen. So he puts Gwyre away. That's why Gwyre and Mordred end up hating him, because he basically does unspeakably nasty things to that family. So they rebel, and then he turns his back on them and goes off with Guinevere, who later on proves to be just as treacherous. because when he's away fighting in Europe in his last years, she ends up basically taking up with Mordred,
Are you
as
kidding?
his bit on the side.
Are you kidding me?
No, no, no. There's some real twists and turns when you start getting into the real characters and you look at them. Actually, some of the sort of romanticized stuff that we get in the medieval period, some of that is actually not as hard hitting as what we get in the real stories. I mean, yeah, we've got this story of Lancelot running off with Guinevere and infidelity and this, that, and the other. Yes, that's basically what she was like, but Lancelot wasn't the one that she ran off with. It was actually worse than that, so they kind of dumbed it down a bit to make it into Lancelot. She actually ran off with the by this point relatively older first son of Arthur. It's all to do with legitimacy as well. Obviously, there was no biological connection between Guinevere and Mordred. That wasn't the connection there. So yeah, it gets quite complicated. But when you do it in chronological order, when you see where these characters are popping up, you begin to piece all this together, and it starts to almost read like a movie script, but not a movie script that you've ever read before. It's quite different.
Wow. What I mean,
um,
you're
uh,
blowing my mind away already because I mean, this is nothing like the movie.
Um, well, in some respects, it is like a movie because it has a lot of the stories that people are familiar with,
Oh,
but
okay.
they go back to the Welsh originals. I'll give you some examples. By applying archaeology as well, you can make sense of this. So people have very often said, okay, Excalibur, brilliant, shining, golden, wonderful, sword that he wielded. Well, actually, that's not the only sword he had. It was pulled from a stone because the original sword, which is known as Caliburn, was a bronze sword, and it was cast to be his ceremonial sword of office. As he then, goes off as a warrior chieftain after he's crowned in Chester when he's 15, when he goes off as a warrior chieftain, he then gets the new iron swords because you can't fight using copper against iron. So he ends up with a couple of Roman swords, and that's where the later versions of Excalibur come from. The idea of him literally pulling one out of a stone, that doesn't work in quite the same way. But archaeologically, it is possible to cast a sword in a stone mould and pull it out of the stone mould. So it's like the facts, the actual ancient facts, slowly begin to fade, and they start to get garbled in the later legends. But all of that's in there. Camelot's a humdinger. Once you realise that the only big city in the entire of the British Isles at this point is Chester, and you start to look at Chester as Camelot, it's got it all. It's got the amphitheatre, it's got a giant converted bathhouse that he used as a palace, it's got white walls with enormous gateways, and it's got this thing called the elliptical building, which in Anglo-Saxon Latin is tabulus rotundus, or the round floor, or the round table, the table being the floor. And it's the
Right.
only place in the UK that had this enormous building. So it's all there, it's all sat there in Chester, waiting to be discovered.
Wow. Um, yeah, okay. Yeah, I know. I mean, every time you talk, because I mean, you're an archaeologist and all of the, research that you do, so now we're at Camelot, okay, which is different. You said it was different than portrayed. Is that where we're at with
Yeah,
this?
a lot of people have guessed, at where Camelot is. So you've got Veronium, which is this big Roman town called Wroxeter, and you've got people, sticking it up in Scotland and putting it down south, and they put Camelot all over the place. But there is only one Caer Leon, which is the giant fortress. There is only one. And once you get into the on the British Isles that comes anywhere close to that in the 5th and 6th centuries, just nowhere. So there's a big section in the book actually about Chester. It does give you the archaeological factual background to that. I mean, to some extent, it's if it quacks like a duck and it looks like a duck, then shoot it's a duck. I'm very matter of fact about these things. And the geography does start to make sense as well. When you realise that most of Arthur's family, most of the places mentioned in old sources, most of the source materials are all Welsh. They're all Northern Welsh. There was an area known as the Old North, the Hen Ogledd, which is where it's all coming from. So you've sort of got North Wales, Cheshire, parts of Shropshire, drifting into Derbyshire. You've got bits going north that drifted up into Lancashire, up into Cumbria. To some extent, some of them ended up in the Scottish lowlands. But it's all the same body of people. It's like the travels of the same tribes, keeping the same records from the same centuries. They're all over this area known as the Old North. That's where you find the legends. Even Lancelot, Lancelot turns up in Lancashire quite a lot because it's Lancelot's Shire and it's part of the Old North. The sections 4 and 5 in the book, the fourth one covers all this because it shows you how legend then develops and the areas evolved. So you're looking at Saxons, you're looking at Danes, you're looking at Vikings, and it ends with the Normans. And then the last section, the fifth section, covers all your written sources. So, the sort of the front end, the popular end, if you like, is easy reading. The very last bit, when you're looking at sources, if there's anybody out there that's academic and they want to see where it all comes from, then that section's there for you as well. So it's both. It's a popular read, but it packs a bit of punch as well.
Packs a bit of punch. I'm sitting over here going, oh my God. Okay. It's like totally different in some ways, like you said, and in other ways, it's the same.
There is a slight kickback in all this, and that is that while it is an enormously significant spiritual site, Glastonbury doesn't play a part in this. Again, Tintagel Castle, amazing archaeological site. Yes, it was there in the Dark Ages, no doubt about that at all. And it's mentioned in the Histories of the Kings of England by Geoffrey of Monmouth. But the first 10 editions of that book don't mention Tintagel until his patron, Robert of Gloucester's cousin, buys the castle. Then it gets written in. So you can see what's happening in medieval times. They've taken sites which look all right, factually they seem to have some kind of background, and then they just push them into the legend, they cobble them in. And that just goes bonkers in medieval times. They're doing all kinds of weird and wonderful things with the legends. But it's still just possible now to pull the legends back to the source, to the original placement of them. And when you start looking at the geography and stuff like that, well, that's mind-blowing, I can go and stand roughly in the same spot that Arthur threw Caliburn into Bala Lake. I can stand there, so I know where the sword is. I know where the iron swords are because they were taken to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre during the Crusades. Under Richard the Lionheart. You can go into Wales, you can stand on castles, you can stand in town centres, you can stand on archaeological sites that Arthur has a connection to. It starts to become physical in ways that previously the legends have not been. So again, I would encourage people to buy the book. It'll tell you the last place on earth that the Holy Grail was seen. It'll tell you what the Holy Grail is, it'll give you all the explanations for these mysteries that you're searching for.
Yeah. So where is the Holy Grail? They can't.
Ooh, now
I thought they. Now wait a second. I thought they couldn't find that.
Right. Okay. Well, there's a reason for that. The reason for that is confusion over this Sangral. Sangral, if you look at it in medieval language, is this amazing the Grail. Wow. It's incredible. It's got all these modern legends tacked onto it that are just nonsense that have only appeared in the last kind of 50 to 100 years. Get rid of all the rubbish. Sangral is actually a Viking term, and Graal comes from the same root word as gruel. And what a Graal is it's a bowl made of stone from which they used to take grain, it's like a porridge substance, and feed everybody on a Viking ship. So it's a bowl that keeps alive a fellowship of people. Now, in the Viking mind, that is exactly the same as what happened at the Last Supper. They had the bread and the wine, they had a couple of stone bowls, they sent all of this stuff around, and there you have it, that's the Last Supper. So actually what we're looking for are these stone bowls. And this is where it really gets mind-boggling. Very recently, there's been a lot of people studying Islam, studying the Islamic scriptures and what have you, and their paperwork. Now, in their paperwork, over in the Holy Land, they discovered 2 shipping receipts for the stone cups that were kept at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
Wow.
Now, those 2 stone cups now, I think it's the Chalice of San Isidora and another one that are in Spain. And you can trace them, you can track these 2 little stone bowls all the way to Spain. So if you just want a grail per se, there are thousands of them. Any chalice used in a communal way, communion way, any chalice could count as the grail. But what you want is Sangraal. You want the, capital V, grail. The grail, there are 2 of them, and they're in Spain. And I do go into some detail in that in the book. And I'm fairly convinced that the evidence is sufficiently strong to make at least one of those 2 cups.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wow.
And they have it. Yeah, they're out there. But who would have thought of looking in Islamic shipping receipts?
You know.
Well, I put the word out there, and that's what came back. So I got it. I did the research, and there it is. But that was, I think, it was only 2012 that they found the shipping receipts. And it took a couple of Spanish scholars to translate them, out of ancient Arabic and what have you. And but they're in the book. It makes sense. It's in the book, so you can follow it.
Okay, so the Grail has been found. Okay, many of them. Okay, so it's not like this big chalice that's made of gold with, all these, gems around it or anything like that. Is that what you're saying?
In a strange way, it is, because as time has progressed, they added a base to this stone, one of the stone cups, and they added some gold and some decoration to it because obviously it was very important to them. So they developed it into our impression of a medieval chalice, that sort of grail. But what's happened is they've examined the stone elements, they've taken it back and archaeologically just looked at what the stone cups are. And they definitely come back. They definitely ring true. They're actually made of onyx, I think. These two cups.
Oh, really?
Wow. Yeah. So they actually do fit a lot of the descriptions that are given to the Grail, because the Grail is very often referred to as a green stone cup. These are sort of green and brownish. So they're pretty good candidates. Well, as I say, depends what you mean by Grail, because there are other Grails. Anything basically associated with either the crucifixion or the Last Supper or Joseph of Arimathea, any of those things could be counted as a grail. For example, if you look for the Welsh grail that Joseph brought to Britain, they're actually 2 Roman glass cruets, glass containers. One of them has the sweat of Christ and the other has the blood of Christ, which is possible because he was at the crucifixion and the body was buried in his tomb. So it's possible he could have got those substances. And it's said that they're buried with Joseph. Now, if they are, Joseph is said to be buried here in the UK. I happen to know where he is, but I don't want people dashing out there digging him up with shovels.
Yeah.
It's a listed archaeological site, so please don't do that. But he is buried out here. I happen to know where he's supposed to be. But imagine that. I mean, if you went and dug him up archaeologically and you recovered these 2 cruets, you've effectively got the DNA of God, because that's what's in blood and that's what's in, sweat is DNA.
That's amazing. I'm surprised they haven't dug it up. They go into the Great Pyramids and they dig all that stuff up. Why can't they dig this up?
Not to put too fine a point on it, there's a socking great big abbey stuck right on top of it. You would be in danger of demolishing medieval archaeology in order to get at it. And it's proven very difficult. I mean, it has been geophysed. We are looking at it. And it's proving very difficult to pin down a way in, as it were, to where these items might be. But watch this space. If anything happens, if anybody's out there, if ancient aliens want to do a program on King Arthur, come and see me. Boy, have I got some stuff for them.
Yeah, really.
Or dash out and buy the book. Better still. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff to be seen. Once you start to get the geography right, and you've got the archaeology right, and you've got the time period right, and you've got your source material right, everything else just falls into place. It's still there, you know what I mean? It's like you kind of know that you're barking up the right tree because all the jigsaw pieces kind of fall together.
They go together.
Yeah.
They start falling in together, so you can understand what you're trying to portray here is the true King Arthur. That your book is kind of like a puzzle, and it all comes together into the end to where you fully understand what has happened.
It kind of builds. It builds a bit like classical music builds like a symphony, and it adds more and more layers. And it kind of builds to a crescendo, to the point where by the time you get to the end of it, you've got a pretty good idea where Arthur was buried and why. And then it goes into the Sleeping Arthur legends at the end, which I put them in because I kind of have to, because it's a nice thing to put in. But he's probably still out there somewhere, sleeping at the end. But it builds, the whole thing. You just add pieces of information to more pieces of information, and as I say, it pieces together. I'd imagine people will get to the end of the book and they'll be sat there going, "Well, why has nobody ever done this before?"
Right.
It's such an obvious thing to do. I think probably the killer is the amount of material you have to go through to do it. I'm not saying I had a spare 45 years to do it. I mean, it took a long time, and it's come in little bits and slices and whatnot. It's not. I wasn't there for 40 odd years browsing through ancient libraries or anything. It's come in bits, but it takes that long to sort of shift the rubbish out of the room. It is like archaeology, digging through layers of subsequent material to try to get to the layer that you actually want. It's exactly like archaeology. Literary archaeology is what it is. All the clues are there, but I'm very surprised nobody else has tackled it. It's met with really good reviews. Some of the Arthurian scholars out there have given it a couple of good endorsements in the front of it. John Matthews has, and a couple of other guys. And there's a couple of people out there waiting for copies to come flying through the door in the post for review. We had our first review by Phenomena magazine. I think we've got the review coming in the next issue. Over here in the UK, and they've given it an extremely good review. So I can see you doing well. 2023 is going to be the year of Arthur, I think.
Well,
almost certainly.
Yeah, well, I think it's time. I mean, you've been working on this forever, okay? And
I think it's time. It's time in general. I mean, the 21st century, we're in it. We're going into the third decade of the new millennium, and it's sort of everybody's after the truth. That's the key.
Yeah.
It's a different social outlook now. We're fine with all the nonsense. We're fine with all the legends and the mythology and all. Yeah, great. We've had a whopping great wedge of that. That's been going since the 1960s, 70s, 80s, etc. I think what we're demanding now, what the general population is demanding, is the truth. So it's very much a book of its age, a book of its time. I don't think I could have published this at any other point in history. I think it's coming out at exactly the right moment.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful, and I'm glad this is out because it's like from what we've talked about, it's like wait, okay, so he isn't like the movie Camelot, okay. And Merlin and Mordred, Mordred freaked me out, wearing that mask in the movie,
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, the best one for me is Excalibur, Martin Bormann's movie, because the character of Merlin in that, the grumpy old bald guy who doesn't
yeah.
really want to do anything, that he doesn't like all these guys running around in shiny armor and all that, and he's like, I don't want anything to do with that. Don't bother me, leave me alone, kind of thing. That's my kind of Merlin, and that's getting very close to the character that comes out from the book. He is, and there's more than one Merlin as well. Merlin's a title. So in Arthur's lifetime, there are actually two of them. There's Merlin Le Logan, which is Merlin Dear Friend, and then later in his life, there's Merlin Willet, which is Merlin the Mad. And one sort of lasts all the way up to Arthur's victory at Baden,
Oh,
and then dies
interesting.
at a colossal age. I mean, he's about 100 odd when he dies. And then the next Merlin takes over, and the next Merlin actually then has to suffer the decline. And he lives through Arthur's defeat, and eventually, ultimately, through civil war within the ancient Britons, he goes mad. So you can
Wow.
see them all. But like I said, there's ones before Merlin. There's ones before Merlin Le Logan. There's a couple that start off in the 5th century, and then the last one dies in the 7th century, and he's recorded in Irish and Scottish records. So you can see how the title spans 200 or 300 years, and then the title dies out. So it's nice to see that, because that makes sense out of a lot of the contradictions that you find with Merlin.
Okay, so what you're saying is that you're going over all of these different Merlins. So was there one Merlin and then another one changed into the next Merlin? I mean,
Well, it's like a hereditary title. So if you can imagine in
oh yeah,
Wales,
okay.
whoever was kind of best at it got that title. So I'm pretty sure the first one's Merlin Taliesin, the next one's Merlin Ambrosius, which is
Oh,
Uther's
okay.
brother. The next one after that's Merlin Le Logan. Then you've got Merlin Willet. Then the Scottish guy, I think, is Merlin Tortugan. And then there's the Irish one, and I can't even remember his name. I think it's virtually unpronounceable. But what you see is there's kind of two or three of them in
Yeah.
every 100-year period. So you've got a load in the 400s, a load in the 500s, a load in the 600s, and then they're gone, because basically the Anglo-Saxon culture takes over, and they don't have a place in that, as such. But that again, what a revelation! That's fabulous. You can actually see who's who, and where they are, and what they're doing, and why they are the people that they are. Yeah, it makes sense out of it.
Yeah, well, I think this is a great book. I mean, that, people are addicted to, King Arthur. That this is a great book to give them the evidence, okay? The evidence,
Yeah,
which is what you do, of the true story.
absolutely. I mean, they're going to either love it or hate it. I think if anyone's got like what I would call genuine experience of Arthur, so if somebody's serious about it and they really want to know, this is going to pop a few brains. It's going to pop a few heads, because academically it does cover a huge amount of stuff. But then if you just want to read a good read, you just want to read a good legend, there's a lot of stuff in there that's new. There's a lot of new material. There's a lot of new sites, new archaeology, new legends that people won't even know exist. There's a couple in there from Brittany. There's a couple in there from Italy. There's different bits of legend that come in, that start to make sense out of it all. I mean, one of the classics that people very often run across is, what on earth has northern France, Brocéliande and all that, what on earth has that got to do with King Arthur, when Arthur is essentially British? How do all the British legends get moved to northern France? And why there? Why the northern French?
Exactly.
Well, when you realise Uther's wife, Aegea, is actually from northern France, and that they met in Brittany, so they met sort of on the territory of the Bretons, then of course northern French are going to take an interest in Arthur, because Arthur's dad has married a French woman,
Right.
which is
Okay.
again, it pops your head again, because it means Arthur is at least half French.
Jeez. I mean, it's, yeah, crazy. I
But
mean,
then, but doesn't that answer a lot of questions then? Because then you think, oh right, okay, France has got a legitimate claim because his mum is French. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. Of course, they're going to follow his career. Of course, they're going to follow his legends, etc. So, like I say, when you start reading some of this, you start to think, "Oh, right, okay, that makes sense." So, a lot of the things that they've argued over and puzzled over and struggled over in the
Exactly.
medieval legends,
Right.
this gives you the answers, almost unintentionally. I
Uh,
didn't set out to give some of them. Some of them just happen because that's how it is.
well, it sounds like this book should be in a college course.
Well, yeah, one of the guys actually. I'll have to look it up. There's a guy written a book called Cosmos, and his background is in legal stuff. He writes sort of legal books. Adrian Lang, his name is, and Cosmos is all about Merlin. So we corresponded quite a bit about what Merlin would really be like and all that. Anyway, basically, he's written this absolutely stomping review. And he just puts down here, for anyone remotely interested in what we call history, the Polychronicon of Merlin, Joseph, and Arthur should not be thought of as a recommended but compulsory reading.
Wow.
Bubble. What can I say? There you go. Academics, get hold of this thing. You need to. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah,
Can you see
yeah,
it?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, that should be in academics.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
John Matthews said he wished he had this book like 40 odd years ago when he started looking at the subject because it gives you an incredible grounding. It
Okay,
does give
well,
you
you
a.
know what? I've heard of people writing books like this before and been contacted by colleges saying that they want to use
Yeah.
this for recommended reading, okay, on one of their courses. So, Mark, you
Well,
might.
it depends which way you look at it, actually, because over here we've got the King Arthur Society. There is actually a society, an Arthurian
Oh,
society.
really? Wow.
Yeah, worldwide Arthur Society exists. And again, like I said at the beginning, they're going to either love it or hate it. I don't know which way it's going to go. It'd be nice if they actually, appreciated it for what it was, and like you say, if it ends up going into the academic side of things, fabulous. I'd love to do some of the lectures, for folks. But we also have the King Arthur Library that was donated to the Welsh Library at Aberystwyth. It's in Bangor now, and it's thousands and thousands of books. And I need to get one of these
Oh my
kind of
God.
in there. Yeah, so it's a world resource that people don't know is there. If you go to the National Library of Wales, there is literally this King Arthur Library that was donated to them. So they've got that for research purposes. I mean, that's proven to be amazing. I mean, some of the material that's in there is incredible. Mostly the medieval stuff and the later stuff.
Uh-huh.
And you've still got to be aware that there's a lot of nonsense written about Arthur.
Right.
But also very good source material. There's a lot of very good source material in there.
Well, you're definitely going to get your book in there, and I'm sure you're going to get a call from the college. I mean,
Well, as soon as I get an address, I'm going to ask the publisher to post them one because they definitely should have
yeah,
one.
definitely. I mean, I've known that this has happened to someone. So, whatever way you got to go down that pike, this would just be absolutely fantastic for something like that.
I'm just going to blow your mind actually because I just remembered something that one of the things I discussed with the publisher, as you probably know, I mean worldwide everybody knows that our Queen passed away last year, and King Charles III is now going to come to the throne. I think it's May. I think his coronation is in May. One of his middle names is Arthur. So you can see where this is going. As soon as I get an opportunity, I'm going to pop one of these in the post to King Charles, and I'll just keep you posted. Yeah, I mean, I'll let you know what the result is, but I think he deserves to know where his middle name came from. And also a lot of royalty claim ancestry from lineages that include Arthur. They go back to the Welsh royal lineages from medieval times and things like that. So I think he'd be absolutely fascinated. And he's quite a forward-thinking chap as well, so I think he'll get it. I think he'll understand where I'm coming from. So at the earliest opportunity, I'm going to pop one in the post to him as well at some point this year. Well, you're the first person I've told I'm going to do that, so
Yeah.
You always get exclusives out of me.
Yeah, well, it's going to happen. It's just, the source will come, with all of this stuff that you can get it into the library and. King Charles, you said the third, is that it?
Yeah, King Charles III he'll be.
With Arthur as his middle name.
Yeah, it's one of his
So, I
middle
mean,
names.
this can go into a lot of different facets other than just a book on Amazon.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad it is on Amazon because everyone can get it. You know, I
Well,
wanted it to be generally available. I didn't want it to be an academic print. You know, it's a modern book for modern people, so modern folks can just type my name in to Amazon and up it'll come, and it's out now. So there you
right.
go.
Okay. Now, I just want to say that also before we end here, you have a lot more books.
I do. If you type my name into Amazon, you'll get the other books. There's 3 regional histories for England under Celtic Warrington and other mysteries, and then they go more national. So you'll get Disappearing Ninth Legion, the Life and Times of the Real Robin Hood, but it's ROBYNHOODE. So do spell that correctly if you go looking for that one. Then there's Revealing the Green Man.
Yes.
Then there's Crystal Skulls and Human Heads,
yeah,
which is all about human DNA, human development,
which
different human species.
we did an interview on the Green Man, and we did an interview on the Crystal Skulls.
We did, and
Yes.
now it's the Polychronicon of Merlin, Joseph, and
Yes.
Arthur, and I can exclusively reveal that back in 2008, I did a DVD documentary about a UFO crash in Wales where they actually recovered fragments, which is shown on the DVD. Now, the DVD is hard to find now. I think you can watch it on, I think it's on Amazon Prime or something like that, or it was. It might not still be there, I don't know. It was called Europe's Roswell. Exclusively, I can reveal that's the next book. 40th anniversary, and it's got all the material in it to do with the Europe's Roswell crash at Aberystwyth in Wales.
Is that the new?
So that's coming next.
Oh my God. Oh my God. I mean, I don't know how you have time for all this TV and all these talks, and you go to,
I don't.
you know, and you know, these seminars, and then you get invited to these big events and all that stuff. So, but I just want to say thank you so much for coming on today, and, you know, it's giving people, an explanation of what's really going on here.
Well, it's always a pleasure, and I mean, you know me. I'll always come on here, and I will always deliver the truth to the best of my ability. So it's a pleasure. Give us a shout if you need us again.
Well, you always tell the truth. Okay, so the truth is out there. There's a show called that.
I'm watching the reruns on DVD now, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, that's another story.
Yeah.
I only got to season 6 on video, and then my machine broke, so I've got it on DVD now.
Yeah, kind of like with our Zoom thing today. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's fine. It's finally happened. We can make it happen.
Yes. Okay. So everybody, you could go to Amazon. You can, send me a message. Mark Olly is on Facebook too. It's really easy. It's MarkOlly. And then all the information about the book will be, of course, the description will be on YouTube along with the video that we're doing today. So that's how they're going to find them. So I want to say thank you so much, Mark, for coming on. And I always just love to see you. You're my favorite guy. One of my favorite guys. Okay. Well, actually, my favorite guy. Anyway. Besides Preston Dennett. Okay. So there you go. Well, thank you. And we're going to see you again with something new. So everybody get ready. He is a powerhouse.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. You'll see me again soon, and my beard will be off the camera by then.
What? You're going to shave it?
No. I mean, it's going to be so long.
Oh.
The screen by then.
Okay. All right, ZZ Top. Okay.
There we go. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So thank you so much. And we will definitely see each other again.
Very soon.
Okay.
See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching.